She handed him a check for $42,000, and he disappeared into thin air. That is where Natalie's story begins. Not with a grand dramatic moment, but with a Tuesday morning when she stood in her gutted kitchen, surrounded by exposed wiring, missing walls, and the hollow silence of a man who had simply stopped returning her calls. $42,000. Her savings, her inheritance from her mother. Money she had set aside for 3 years, clipping coupons, skipping vacations, working double shifts at the hospital where she was a pediatric nurse. Gone. And with it, her sense of safety, her trust in people, and very nearly her home. But here's the thing about Natalie. She was not the kind of woman who sat down and accepted it. It had started so promisingly, the way these things always do. Natalie had finally saved enough to renovate her small but beloved Victorian row house in Richmond, Virginia. The place had belonged to her mother, and after her mother passed from cancer 2 years prior, Natalie had inherited both the house and a fierce determination to restore it to its former beauty. She wanted to honor the memory of the woman who had raised her alone, who had scraped and sacrificed so Natalie could go to nursing school, who had loved that creaky old house with everything she had. She found Marcus Drell through a neighborhood Facebook group. He had glowing reviews, a professional-looking website, photos of gorgeous kitchen renovations, and a portfolio that made Natalie's heart lift with hope. He was charming in person, too, confident without being arrogant, full of warm reassurances. He talked about her mother's house like he understood what it meant. He used words like legacy and craftsmanship. Natalie felt, for the first time since her mother's death, genuinely excited about the future. She signed the contract in March. Marcus told her the full renovation, kitchen expansion, new flooring throughout, bathroom updates, would take 8 weeks and cost $47,000 in total. He asked for 90% upfront to cover materials and subcontractors. Natalie hesitated at that briefly. Her gut sent a quiet signal she chose not to hear. She wrote the check. For the first 2 weeks, things looked wonderful. Workers showed up, walls came down. Progress photos landed in her text inbox every few days. Natalie stayed with her colleague Brenda during the renovation, checking in on the house every Sunday, watching the transformation with tearful excitement. Marcus was always there on those visits, walking her through the space with easy confidence, pointing out details, talking about phase 2. Then, in the 4th week, the workers stopped coming. Natalie called Marcus. He answered with an excuse, a supply chain delay, nothing serious, back on track by Thursday. Thursday came and went. She called again. This time it rang out. She drove to the house and found the front door unlocked, the kitchen half demolished, her mother's original oak floors ripped up and not yet replaced, and a bathroom that had been stripped to bare concrete. No materials, no tools, no workers, no Marcus. She felt the bottom fall out of her world. Over the following week, Natalie left 14 voicemails. She sent 31 text messages. She drove to the address listed on Marcus's business website and found a UPS store. It was a mail forwarding address. She checked the Virginia Contractor Licensing Board website and discovered something that made her hands shake. Marcus Drell's license had been revoked 18 months ago for fraud. The glowing reviews on the neighborhood Facebook page? When she looked closely, most of the accounts were created in the same 3-month window. The beautiful portfolio photos on his website were stolen from legitimate contractors in other states. She had been completely, deliberately, expertly conned. Natalie sat in her car outside that UPS store and allowed herself exactly 20 minutes to fall apart. She cried until her chest hurt. She thought about her mother, about the inheritance, about the stripped floors and the exposed pipes and the $42,000 that had evaporated. She thought about how Marcus had looked her in the eyes and said the word legacy. Then she dried her face, pulled out her phone, and started making a different kind of calls. First, she called the police. The detective she spoke to, a tired-sounding man named Ortega, told her these cases were hard to prosecute and she shouldn't get her hopes up. Natalie thanked him politely and then went around him. She contacted the Virginia Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division directly, filing a detailed complaint with every document she had: the contract, the canceled checks, the text messages, the evidence of the fake reviews, the screenshots of the stolen portfolio photos. She had kept everything, every email, every receipt, every photo she had taken during her Sunday visits. Nurses, she will tell you, are meticulous record keepers. It is a professional survival skill. Then she called a contractor fraud attorney named Patricia Holt, who agreed to take her case on contingency after one look at Natalie's documentation. Patricia told her what Natalie had already suspected. Marcus Drell was not a ghost. He was a pattern, and patterns left trails. Natalie found the trail herself, actually, during 3 consecutive sleepless nights of online investigation. She located Marcus in a different Facebook group, 3 counties over, presenting himself under the slightly altered name of Mark Drellian, complete with a new website and the same stolen portfolio photos. He was actively soliciting new clients. She had found him in the middle of his next con. She sent everything to Patricia. Patricia sent everything to Detective Ortega, and this time, with an active fraud in progress, the detective moved quickly. Mark, was arrested on a Wednesday morning while meeting with a prospective client, a retired teacher who had been about to hand over her own life savings for a kitchen renovation. The timing was not lost on anyone. He was charged with felony grand larceny, contractor fraud, and identity fraud. The investigation that followed uncovered 7 additional victims across 3 counties, all women, all targeted through neighborhood social media groups, all conned out of amounts ranging from $18,000 to $65,000. Natalie testified at trial. She sat in the witness box and described, in the clear and steady voice of a woman who had spent years delivering difficult news to frightened parents, exactly what Marcus Drell had taken from her. Not just the money, not just the house. She described the meaning of that inheritance. The Sunday afternoons her mother had spent pointing out which floorboard creaked, which window caught the best morning light. She described writing that check as an act of hope, of love for a woman who was no longer there. The courtroom was very quiet when she finished. Marcus was convicted on all charges. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to all 8 victims. Natalie's share of the restitution was $42,000, every penny. Though Patricia had made very clear that collecting it would take time, that restitution orders were promises more than guarantees. Natalie nodded and said she understood. The conviction, she told Patricia afterward, was worth more than the money anyway. With the help of a licensed, deeply vetted contractor she found through the Virginia Consumer Protection Office's verified list, Natalie completed the renovation 16 months after the nightmare began. She stood in her finished kitchen on a January morning, sunlight coming through the new window over the sink, and she thought about her mother. She thought about the floorboards. New ones now, but the same warm oak, because Natalie had insisted on it. She had read somewhere that grief and anger are often just love with nowhere to go. For a while, both of those things had consumed her, but she had pointed them somewhere useful. She had documented, pursued, testified, and refused to be quiet about what had been done to her. She had protected a retired teacher she had never met. She had helped put a predator behind bars. Her mother's house stood restored and whole around her, exactly as it was always meant to. And so, quietly and completely, did she.